The first thing I need to know, Ari, is, and again, this whole picture is going to change by the time we get around to Tuesday when the episode releases. But I need to, Brian put on his stick.
Are you going to ask me what's going to happen in the election? Is that what's coming?
I'd love to know your opinion, but I also want to know if you can remember a week or let's say a 12-day period in recent record that has been so goddamn upside down bananas. And also, I would like to know, and you can tell me on the record or off the record, how you feel about the President of the United States having a personal physician who's an osteopath. That's the other thing I'd like to know. But you can answer those questions.
What is an osteopath exactly? I don't even know.
Well, it's not an MD. I can tell you that.
Okay.
I don't know enough about medicine to really weigh in on the osteopath question, but I will tell you that
because most people have never heard of an osteopath.
I have never. I mean, like, to some extent, this has been true the entire Trump administration, right? That, like, ordinarily, a big story would happen, and we'd cover that story, and then the second day, we'd cover the implications of that story, and the third day, we'd cover, like, where that story might go next. And now there's 5 of those things happening every day. And so it's just, I mean, as a news consumer, when you look at the spate of things that happened in a week, from like the presidential debate to the COVID diagnosis to the New York Times tax story to the Melania tapes,
the tax returns,
on and on and on. The tax returns, like, I mean, and then we have like the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. So, like, as a news consumer, I don't know how you digest all of that. And as somebody who reports the news and helps put together a 2-hour news program every day, we have to struggle with, like, well, you know, there are things happening in other parts of the world, too. The world isn't all politics, and the world isn't all misery. So how do we get the joy, surprise, and uplift in the mix? How do we get a variety of stories on different topics without just burying listeners in a deluge of, like, eye-popping stories that are impossible to totally wrap your head around? And I think we're still figuring that out.
And
well, I think the way to figure it out
is,
and I've thought this for years listening to All Things Considered. I think the way to figure that out is really you need to be reporting on where the emails went back in.
Oh, you mean the Hillary emails?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
the Hillary
that's
emails.
Where all
Thank
your
you for that suggestion. That's a great suggestion.
You're
and
welcome.
I will make sure to file that away for the appropriate moment.
I would. It's always the appropriate moment.
Now, shall I tell? I don't know if I told Brian this yet. I have a theory, and I want to. And this is something I do, Ari. I have a little bit of a clairvoyant streak, and
so did my grandmother. But go on. My grandmother was a fortune teller at carnivals, but not to derail the story.
Wow.
Yes, clairvoyant
but that's like
streak.
Ronna.
Ronna, please go on.
I have a shtetl clairvoyant streak. I do.
So did my grandmother. Yes, continue.
And I have a thing where I see something and I just know what it is. And I say it and everyone says, "You're crazy, Ronna." And then a week later, it becomes the thing. Sometimes you just see something. I honestly think it's just like recognizing patterns in nature.
I have witnessed this, as have the listeners, and it is absolutely true.
You're a Cassandra. It's a curse in a way.
Yeah.
I think Kellyanne Conway and Bill Barr are having an affair.
With who?
Each other.
I see that with each other.
With who? With who?
Ew, why do you think that?
The only appropriate response to that is with who?
With a murder on it and a toad. That's who. I think they're having an affair. And I don't know whether it's been consummated or it hasn't been consummated, but I want each of you to go back and look at the footage from the Super Spreader event, from the Amy Coney Barrett Super Spreader event. And I want you to notice Kellyanne and Bill having a side conversation, which the first thing you say to yourself is, what's he talking to her for? He doesn't want to talk to anybody, Bill Barr. He wants to show up and do what he's supposed to do, and then he wants to go back to the office because he's too busy disassembling civilization.
Sure.
So he's busy. And she is standing there, and her shoulders are back, and she's standing straight up, and she's listening to what he's saying in her ear, leaning this way. And he is leaning in and speaking in her ear in a fashion that you really only see when there is a certain intimacy or at least a sort of folie, a deux going on. So I'm not going to say it's 100% been consummated, but I am going to say that there is a spark.
Could I just clarify the difference between intimacy and folie à deux? Because I want to make sure that we've got the prediction nailed down. Just, so we have like...
You're right.
I think...
We can't mislead people, Ronna.